All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. You know what that means. It's the first Wednesday of the month. So it's ladies' night. Don't sing too much because copyrights. Okay. So I'm Annie Greer, former slam player, three-time national champion, only flossing one of the rings on y'all tonight. And we are joined by an excellent panel of ladies, as usual. And we've even got a special guest tonight. So first, I'm gonna bring up Joe. Joe, come on up. Or come
Hey,
on down, as they say in showbiz. How you doing tonight, Joe?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited for our special guest tonight. Been looking forward to this one, but good. I haven't been on the show since I was on vacation, so it's weird seeing everyone again for the first time in a couple of weeks. So happy to be home.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have been like summer vacationing, since we crowned our new champs, our return to the champs in the NBA. This is kind of the time where, like, not really sports taking a break, but at least the big money making ones. We also crowned an NHL champion. So I feel like people have been getting in where they fit in, as they say, right? In terms of taking their vacations. We're already on countdown to the NFL season. Everything's been on the move, so I completely understand.
Yeah, we have
And
baseball on right now. It's weird.
exactly. And we got Michaela on the show tonight. Michaela, come on down.
Hello, ladies, and hello, everyone who is tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to
Hello.
have you. I mean, I was about to say good to have you back, but you've been on the show since the first time I did the show with you. So
Right.
it's just good to have you continue on. Really appreciate it. Hello, Miss
Hi, Miss
Williams. It's so
Williams.
great to see you watching as always. And we got Coach Stringer in the house. Coach Stringer, come on down.
What's going on? What's going on?
Hello, what you been up to?
Same old thing. Just coaching, man. Nothing special.
You
That
be
is
hemming up kids on
always
the court?
you're not
Man, they stressed me out last week, and we head to Kansas City tomorrow, so we back on the road.
Oh wow. So
Yeah.
you said just to confirm on record, you do hem the kids up
A little
on the
bit sometimes.
sideline. Say only when necessary, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you again to our panel for joining us for another awesome Ladies Night Summer Edition. And thank you to those of you out there watching us. We know that you're joining us on all our various platforms. We've got Facebook, we've got YouTube, which, if you're joining us from YouTube, don't forget to hit that bell. That way you get your notifications and you never have to miss a ladies' night. Know that you can watch us on Insta. Well, can you watch us on Instagram or just follow us on Instagram and then watch us
Follow
on
us.
Twitter? however the interwebs work. That's what you can do, right? And then you know that we are available on Roku and Hot 365 Radio as soon as the show is finished. So if you can't tune in live or you got to leave a little bit early, you never have to miss the fun. Don't forget to join the Platform Sports Talk Show for our other premiere night, The Man Cave. And that's every last Wednesday of the month. So they go ahead and muck things up, and then the ladies come back around on the first Wednesday of the month to clean it all back up, get things started off on the right foot again. Okay, so don't forget, keep checking out the Platform Sports Talk Show. And ladies, where are we starting tonight?
I don't know, just catching up. First off, I hope everyone did, have a good and safe 4th of July. I know there was also, more bad things going on in the country, but I hope everyone else had a good time and was safe. Got to spend time with their families.
Yeah.
Anybody else on their summer vacation vibe? Michaela?
I wouldn't say summer vacation vibe. I actually did just go to Cancun, though. So for those of you who may not know or just tuning in, I was recently crowned Miss Missouri USA just 2 months ago. And so the entire Miss USA class of 2022 went down to Cancun, and we stayed at the fabulous, luxurious Nizuc Resort, where I must brag that Beyonce had her birthday at. So I was as Beyonce.
Okay.
And we were down there. We got to meet all of the state contestants who are going to be competing in Miss USA this year. We took our official headshots, and we just got to enjoy being down in Cancun and getting to know each other. So even though it was technically it was like a business / vacation, but more so business.
Well, there's money on the line, right?
Oh, there's a job on the line. So yes, there's money.
Okay, so when there's money on the line, it's definitely business. So were you sizing up the competition?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, it was good to meet the girls, but I've really been trying to come in with this, and I've had to tame my competitive spirit a little bit. I really have had to, but it's not really so much more about the competition than what it is just, being your best self and just, you got to be you, because they're going to pick who they like. And the judging is so subjective. You never know what it's going to be. It could be any different girl on any given day. So I'm just focused on being the best me I can be, staying in my own lane. And that's all I can do.
Good energy.
Right. Because I would be sizing people up. I'd be like, look at her with her knobby knees. Thinking she about to wear this dress better than me.
Oh, girl.
No, that's amazing, though. Coach, tell us about your traveling.
Well,
so where all have you been? Where all are you going?
We have 3 more tournaments this month. I'm happy after this week. I'm teaching summer school, so after this week, I'm going on my vacation. But we went to Chicago and Memphis last month, and then we'll take them to KC this weekend. Depending on how they do this weekend, it's going to determine if I want to take them anywhere else. They've been really stressing me out this summer, so I think locally is best for them right now. So we'll see what happens this weekend.
Okay. Do you want to share any like records or how you all have been doing, or you kept that quiet for a reason?
This summer has been very different. I'll say my girls have been holding it down. My girls won their last tournament, but my boys, I don't know. It's just the heart right now is not there. The maturity's not there. So they're struggling on the bus. It'll probably hit them when school starts, when they realize they might be not getting playing time, or they wonder what they're going to do for college. But they really have been struggling this summer. I don't know if social media got to them where they think they're just going to go pro or what the case might be, but it's been a different type of summer.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, just thinking about even with everything that's happening, let's say in college sports, with NIL and transfer portals and all of that stuff, if you're a coach that's trying to mature a team by keeping people together, having some consistency, that's got to be tough. And I imagine if you are a high school kid and you're seeing, what's my man, the quarterback down in Miami who just signed this multi-million-dollar NIL deal with one of the boosters, you have to be looking at that and like, I want that, but what wanting that means is different now. Like, I think in my day, the only thing that could mean was playing better. And now it's almost like I got to get my followers up because I have to be an attractive product for a brand to want to sign me or use me to promote me, right? To get that NIL deal. So I imagine coaching right now, it's got to feel, a little turbulent. And we know you ain't new to this, you true to this. So tell us how things have maybe changed in the coaching game.
Just like what you said, I think a lot of my players get wrapped up in likes. They want to have pictures on the court, but not producing anything. And I ask them all the time, like, what is social media gonna do for y'all? Y'all not winning games based on y'all liking. So I mean, like, either you want it or you don't want it. Even like coming to practice, I have kids missing practice and wanting to play games. I'm like, I can't prepare y'all to go play college if y'all can't make it to practice. And I just think they base it on their talent. They don't have to put the work in. Like I said, my girls have been amazing at practice every week, competing to the highest level and knowing they have to have education as well. My boys are slacking in the classroom. It's just different. I don't know. I can only save so many, man, but it's been a very stressful summer.
See, but I feel like they got the right one in you because, I delight in my petty. So I would follow all of my kids' Instagrams, and as soon as they post a photo, I would put their last box score underneath it, like as the first comment. I would be like, and so what was this picture actually worth? Right? Like 10 minutes, 2 points. Like I would be petty.
That's so petty.
It is, which is why I would do it. It's my go-to move.
But
okay.
Annie, you made a good point saying that because, well, when you were talking about the NILs and how it's kind of transformed the youth game because kids are seeing that. And of course, it's something that they want to aspire to. But like you said, you have to get there first. And I think that's the step that a lot of our younger athletes are starting to miss is like, yeah, it looks good, but you got to get there. And if you don't have what it takes to get there, that's never going to be an option for you. And it's sad that we are seeing just this wave of our youth athletes, especially in women's sports, dropping off in the youth athletics and youth participation just because we have gotten so far away from just activity and everyone wants to be online and on their phone and on social media. And we're not really seeing people take the game as seriously as we once did, in my opinion.
I agree.
Absolutely. What you think, Joe?
It's all about getting the likes on social media. I mean, shoot, you see professionals doing the same exact thing. And Annie, there are a lot of fans that do what you're talking about to these major league players and professionals in all sports. They want to sit there and trash them, which I'm okay with doing to a certain extent, because there's some people that go a little too far and start, ragging on the families and whatnot. But I like that, sit there and like put their stat line or something.
Yeah. See, I would do it to the kids though. I think it's petty to do it to professionals because no matter how bad Russell Westbrook is, he's still better than you.
He's still better than you. And he's done what he's needed to do to get to the level to where he's at. We're talking about kids who have not proven themselves yet. And that's
right.
The story.
And these guys grow up now, their head's so big, like all the right filters and like we've said, getting the likes and everything. They're just so into that right now. And I get it, in high school and everything, I'd want to make my photos look cute too. And now I don't really care, like what it doesn't do anything for you.
But I'm not even hating on the aspect that they want to have a personal brand online, because at the end of the day is the trajectory we're moving in. Everybody should be building a personal brand online and on their social medias. But if you ain't got nothing to back up your punch, you know what I'm saying? If you're just all talk and no action and you're just this facade on social media, but what you're doing in the real world, especially in athletics, is not adding up, you're going to get exposed. So it's just a matter of like whatever brand you're building, you need to be living that in real life, especially if you're an athlete.
Yeah, like Miss Williams says, they'll find out soon that if your team does poorly, those likes will disappear. If you're not doing well, or just the negative comments will come. If you go on Cardinals Twitter right now, that's that's all over.
Oh, buddy.
I think that people think that they're going to be the superstar and a bad team. They're going to be the diamond in the rough. They're going to be the like the Zion Williamson, where his small school in South Carolina, they weren't amazing, but you saw his videos and you knew that he was going to be something. Now he chose Duke, so he just threw his life away. We're not going to talk about that. But like Miss Williams said, and like you all have been saying, like you first have to be the best person, right? So you can't just be the whack person on the worst team, right? So I would love to hear more from our special guest, maybe about how she's seen just the entire landscape of sports changing in her veteran career in the business. I'm going to turn it over to Joe to introduce our special guest.
All right. Our special guest tonight's had me a little nervous for the last couple of weeks, but I'm super excited. She's a Belleville native, a sports lover, and you heard her voice all over your radios in St. Louis. She makes up half of the character in Smallman show. Everyone, welcome in Michelle Smallman.
Hi, ladies. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. And first and foremost, apologies, because I know we've been trying to make this happen for a while, but unfortunately, we first tried to line this up during the Blues playoff push. And that's always a very difficult time to try to book anything, as you know, because you never really know when they're going to play. So thank you for your patience, and thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I don't know if you have ever been in a position to grant someone's wish or to make someone's dream come true, but that is what you are doing tonight. Our panelist, Joe Bovacani, has been a huge fan of yours, has been so excited. So we are going to let her lead this discussion as we learn more about you and your lens around sports.
Oh my goodness, Joe, I'm so flattered and I'm so excited to speak with you. This is amazing.
No, this is awesome. I'm super excited. Like I said, I'm nervous. Don't
be nervous, girl. Don't be nervous at all.
Right. I do have to say, my sister Casey, she works at Studio Braca, so shout out to my sister Casey. But her old mentor Carrie wanted me to say something nice about your hair. So your hair looks amazing, and she wanted a live shout out. So that's for you, Casey and Carrie.
Oh my goodness. Well, yes, of course. I know your sister and remember her. And Carrie is my girl. I mean, I see her every 4 to 5 weeks. I feel like she knows more about me than almost anyone. So shout out to your sister and shout out to Carrie for sure.
I've been telling her, because I told her about the last time you're going to be on, and she's like, all right, we're going to have to watch it while we're in the studio. So hopefully they're watching tonight. But usually whenever we have a guest on, we do ask, like, what made you fall in love with sports?
Oh gosh, that's it's like a complicated and simple question, really. I mean, I just grew up in it, right? I am an only child, so I didn't really have, siblings to play with. So I'm super close with my parents. And my dad is a diehard sports fan, and he just kind of took me around with him everywhere he went. I would go to Cardinals games with him, and he would teach me how to fill out the scorecard, and we would just have our routines together. We would go to Blues games, and he would dress me up in a jersey, and I just kind of wanted to do anything that he wanted to do and fell in love with sports through him. But as I got older and your interests start to vary, it always kind of stuck with me. I started playing sports, and even when I was growing up, I would like deviate a little and not be as interested, but it was always a passion of mine. I just never really thought it could be a career, but I'm glad it became a career, that's for sure. But I would say probably because of my dad. If we're taking it all the way back to the beginning, if anyone wants to wonder why I'm sitting in this position today, it's because he poured that interest into me and I kind of grabbed a hold of it.
And I know it was awesome in the 2019 magical season for the Blues. You posted the video of you and your dad celebrating. So that was really cool. We all go back to a special moment with their mom or dad when it comes to sports.
Oh, absolutely. That is one of my Mount Rushmore moments for sure. So I'll have to give you a little bit of background there. A couple things. Number one, I never thought the Blues were going to win the Stanley Cup. Randy Carricker, my co-host, and I, we were convinced that the Blues were cursed. We thought that there was some sort of voodoo or something that was placed upon them because they had so many good teams throughout their 50 plus year history. And there was always some heartbreak, some reason why they wouldn't win. We actually prior to that season, had talked about going down to Enterprise Center and doing this thing where we would try to reverse a curse. So I was convinced that they would never win. Then when they got in the position to win, I had gotten offered a plane ride and a ticket to Game 7 in Boston, totally free. And that is an experience that I think anyone would take, right? I was like, I'll be back at 2:30 in the morning. I can still get up in the morning and do the show. This is a no-brainer. I need to do it. But a couple years prior, I had been in Connecticut and was working for ESPN at the network and missed my family and desperately. And my dad actually had a really bad health scare the first week that I moved home. And I just kind of sat down in that moment and was like, if this would have happened a year ago, you would have been in Connecticut. And if this would have happened a couple months ago, your dad might not have even been here. What is better in life than experiencing this with him? So I declined the ticket. I declined the opportunity to see them win it live. And I took my dad to Enterprise Center and we got to watch it there with all of the great Blues fans. And it's honestly one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life. It was so emotional and it was just kind of so much bigger than the Blues winning. It was a representation of our relationship and how much we love each other, and really kind of a big thank you from me to him because of that connection that we have. Like I said, had he not poured into me all of his love of sports and, you know, his guidance in me, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I look back on that day and think that when I get older in my life, that's one of the first memories that I'll have of one of the most special days of my life.
I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So your dad broke the curse, is what I heard.
Basically. Annie, I will have to tell him that you said that. He'll love that.
Dad was the good luck charm.
Literally.
He is. He is.
Can I take your dad to Pirates games? Because I'm a Pirates fan.
Listen, I don't know if he's that lucky, Annie.
We'll take anything we can get right now.
Yeah, that's right. You got some good young prospects coming up, though. Key Brian Hayes is really exciting. I mean, there's
O'Neal Cruz. He's fun too.
Yeah, exactly.
No, this is Andrew McCutcheon written all over it. We just get people good. We get them national attention, and then we sell them for parts, basically. So
yeah, I can't have an argument against that. It's rough being a Pirates fan. I feel for you. But I also tell people if the Blues can do it, any team can do it because they had some rough years.
Well, not only can your dad come, he can play shortstop if he would like to. We can get him down on the diamond as well.
He would love that too. Trust me.
I think Michaela had a question.
I was just gonna say, and Michelle, if you and your dad want to, go and search for some pictures for our Cardinals right now, it might be the look we really need as well. So.
Yeah, that is certainly a need. That was basically our entire show this morning on Character and Smallman on 101 ESPN. This is a team that's built to make a playoff run if they can get healthy, but there is one glaring need, and that is starting pitching. But the problem is that I know that Steven Matz is coming back, and that's going to be, hopefully if he can return and be healthy, a bump for the Cardinals. If you get Jack Flaherty back in any capacity, that's kind of the cherry on top. But if you're looking for John Mozeliak to make a big move at the trade deadline, there's not really a lot of starting pitching out there. I think that Randy really wants Madison Bumgarner, and I think he could be a real fit. If you look last year when Lester and Happ were acquired, I think a lot of people kind of collectively went, really? Is this the way that the Cardinals are going to go? But there's something about those grizzled veteran guys who know how to win, especially in the playoffs. And I don't know about you guys, but if Madison Bumgarner gets the ball in the playoffs, regardless of where he's at in his career, I have confidence in him to get it done. So I know that John Mozeliak will be making a lot of calls and looking to see what's available, but he's somebody that I would certainly keep an eye on.
Yeah, I would love to have Mad Bum here. Wayno Mad Bum in the playoffs, that would be really awesome to watch. But like when you speak to Mozeliak, like on the show or whatever, does it ever, because obviously you're a fan as well and you have to be professional, but do you ever just like get angry talking to him? Like this is like, I know you can't sit there and say all this negative stuff, but I mean, this has been a glaring issue for the last 2.5 years, but Happ and Lester last year was more so like he said it on the show. We pretty much just need innings. Like we just need to finish this year. And then we had that magical run. But now we need guys to actually go 5-6 innings because our bullpens, it's going to be shot by the end of the, after the All-Star break.
Yeah, no, I'm actually probably more of a John Mozeliak fan than most Cardinals fans out there because I look at the entire body of work and I never get mad at any guest that we have. Usually it's like a very honest and respectful conversation. We've pushed him pretty hard on some things and he's always been really transparent with us, which I always appreciate because there's a lot of front office executives that don't necessarily do a lot of media. And so I always appreciate his willingness to come on and talk to us because he knows that we're the vessel to the fans. He knows that if the fans want answers, that he's going to have to come on with us. But I remember when, I believe it was last June, when the Cardinals were in a terrible slump. I mean, that month was awful. We came on and grilled him pretty hard about Jeff Albert as the hitting coach and the approach that the Cardinals were taking and really doubling down on despite not having a ton of success. And I straight up asked him, I'm like, you're talking about this high level curriculum that you're steadfastly trying to implement in the team, even though you're not really seeing it pay dividends yet. Are you worried that it's too complicated? Do you think that maybe this is something that will be too hard for players to grasp? And he was like, yeah, we are kind of concerned about it. And that's why we have a lot of different voices that we are having in the organization deploy this information to the players. So I think he is always really honest with us, which I appreciate. And he says things that people don't necessarily want to hear, but I know that everybody wants a big transaction from him all the time. But the Cardinals are really good about thinking about the future and budgeting for the future while also making moves in real time. And that's kind of difficult for fans to absorb sometimes because they want a winner. And, you know, they show up through the turnstiles every year and they vote with their money. So I understand their frustrations too.
One more question on Hobo Mo is philosophical differences. This was like a week long, maybe even a month long conversation on the radio. What was your take on that?
I still think there's so much more to that situation and that conversation that we may never find out because philosophical differences, while it's an answer, it's still very cryptic. It can be interpreted in a lot of ways. And then in the wake of that, Mike Schilt coming out saying that he was absolutely heartbroken. I mean, he did an amazing piece with Bob Nightingale where he was so open and raw about how devastated he was and how he didn't think the conversation was going to go like that. And he thought it was a safe space for him to maybe be critical of the Cardinals. And there's three sides to every story, your side, my side, and the truth. And I think Mike Schultz has probably said all he's going to say on it because he wants to manage again at some point, and he should because he's a really good manager, and I think he would be an asset to any baseball team. He's a winner, and he knows how to build a team and coach a team. And I think the Cardinals are done talking about it too. So maybe 20 years from now, when the dust is completely settled and both parties have moved on, we'll get a little bit more information. But I think it was just conflicting ideologies. And I think the Cardinals have really decided that they want just a completely streamlined approach throughout the entire organization. And that if people aren't on board with that, they're going to have to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I think being as close to the action as you are and being in the media and having all these different perspectives. First, before I ask my question, let me preface this is a safe space.
Oh, sure. Great.
Here on Ladies Night on the Platform Sports Talk Show. Do you ever think like I could do my job as good as some of these managers or GMs? Do you like having sort of that, you know, that 30,000 foot view? Do you ever sit across from somebody and just be like, if I had your job, I could have made these moves already, or I could have, you know, I could have done this already. Do you?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why.
Mhm.
I am very emotional. And Doug Armstrong is maybe the single greatest front office executive that I will ever cover. He is so shrewd in his moves. He's so good at what he does. And he is so good at what he does because he can compartmentalize his emotions from what is best for the product. And I could not do that. I would not have it in me to say goodbye to David Backus, someone who has been an unbelievable Blue. After Alex Pietrangelo becomes the first Blue in franchise history to hoist the cup, I don't think I could let him go. And that's why I know, even though I don't agree sometimes with the acquisitions that are made, or maybe I think the approach could have been different, I know that when it comes down to the actual nuts and bolts of the job, that I don't have what it takes to do it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Army, we just celebrated the ROR anniversary a couple days ago. I still can't believe he's on our team. That was awesome.
Yeah, he's the best, isn't he? Gosh, what an important, he really was the missing piece. He and Jordan Bennington. When I look back at that move, I think, what is wrong with Buffalo? How could they turn Ryan O'Reilly into somebody that didn't like hockey and somebody that was miserable? I mean, he's just everything you could ever ask in a hockey player and in a captain.
Yeah, but Tage Thompson's working out for them now because he's looking to be a pretty good hockey player. That back to, I guess, just like you in your career. One, I saw on your Instagram that you love Mia Hamm. Did you play soccer whenever you were younger?
I did. I played soccer my entire life from the time I was probably 4 years old until I was a senior in high school. And I really wanted to go to a big university and knew that I wasn't going to play D1 soccer. So I was like, instead of trying to pursue it and play some at a small school, I'm just going to sunset it and maybe play some rec league soccer when I have time. But soccer has always been my first love when it comes to sports.
Shout out to fellow Tar Heel, Mia Hamm.
Oh, we don't love the Tar Heels in my house, Annie. I'm sorry. I went to Illinois. We'll never get over 2005.
Oh, wow.
No. We don't like them. I actually,
just
when I
got
was
1% happier in this interview.
Well, we could go into the academic scandal and how UNC maybe had an advantage that year, but let's not go there.
I'm here for it. With the way that we're seeing college athletics change, it's like, look, we just had to keep up. Not specifically about academic scandals, but speaking of how things change with your career over time, what have you noticed has changed the most about sports, whether it's just the sports landscape in general or whether it's a specific sport?
Oh gosh, so many things. I mean, when I started fresh out of college, social media was not what it is today. And that's obviously been something that has blown open the media door in so many different ways. But, I would say not even just the landscape of media, like we could have never done something like this before. Like social media and technology can be great because it can connect so many people. It can get your product exposure to so many different people that would never have a chance to see your work. But also it gives everyone a voice, and it's oversaturated the market in so many ways. And I think we're not, as human beings, meant to absorb this wave of commentary on ourselves at all times. And so I think it's made the job really difficult and in ways that didn't exist before, but it also opens up this entire ocean of opportunities in another way. So while and I'll say this too, technology and social media has changed what I do because it never turns off. Before you would watch the game, you would take your notes, you would curate your thoughts and go to bed, and then you'd get ready to talk about it the next morning. When I go to bed after I watch the game and I wake up at 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning, there's like 6 stories or things that have broken overnight that I have to then read about and react to. It's just this never-ending churn of information. And I think that that's positive because it gives us more to talk about, but it's also a negative because a lot of times you need to react instantly to something. And I think certain topics need time and space, and they need you to really give the energy needed to give a thoughtful approach, and I think that that's been really a really interesting thing that's developed in the industry since I first started.
And Michelle, I know you and I can relate on that a little bit, just having been in the sports world for so long and then having to report on it, that 24-hour, 7 days a week, constant feeding of information. I remember you and I went on a trip out to Kansas City where we were watching a Sporting KC game, and you were in the front seat and you were preparing for your show that you were going to be on literally in the next couple hours, and you're sitting there just listening to podcasts and reading articles, just trying to get up to date on what you guys were going to be talking about, and just talk about how that has really shifted for you in your career? You touched base on it a little bit, but just now literally having to provide that fresh perspective, even on your end, when there's a million other opinions coming your way.
Yeah, that's such a good question, because it is so hard when you may be like, if something happens today at, let's say, 2 p.m., there's already 2 other shows on my station alone that have talked about it, let alone the national media that has covered it. So something that happened literally today, by the time I get on the air at 7 a.m., may be a boring topic to some people, or they might think that it's expired. And trying to think of an interesting way to approach it or a different avenue is always one of the challenges of the job. And it's just this never ending cycle of stuff that happens. You're right, Michaela. I remember that trip where even for me to go watch sports and then talk about it on the show the next day, I had missed, I think, a hockey game or a baseball game that I was trying to watch on the drive back. And I was trying to read about the game. I was trying to watch the post-game comments, because when you're on TV, you have to fill sometimes maybe 3 minutes. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. When you're on radio, you have 3 hours to fill. 3 hours. So it's not just, here's what happened in the Cardinals game. Here's where they are in the standings. Here's what's coming up tomorrow. That takes 30 seconds. You still have, even in that segment, 9 minutes and 30 seconds to fill. So you really have to think about your approach and what it is that you have to say. And sometimes even what I have to say is not that interesting. I mean, right now we're in the dog days of summer with the Cardinals, and they've gone on a bit of a losing streak right now, and they need starting pitching. So that's interesting. But sometimes it's just, hey, they lost a game. And that's going to happen throughout the duration of a baseball season. Or sometimes it's, hey, they won a game. And you have to really dig deep and think, if I was driving to work today, what would be interesting about that game? What is something different that is going to make somebody stay in their car with me for 8 to 10 minutes? Because that's the ultimate goal, is to keep somebody in their car or keep them on the dial when they're driving.
And Michelle, you have had such a long career, a great career in sports. I consider you a trailblazer for women in sports, because I know you're someone whoever I used to listen to whenever I was growing up and trying to get into this game and everything. So what would you say to anyone who's watching who may be interested in doing a show like we're on right now, or getting on radio and talking about sports? What did you think was the difference maker for you to get to the level you're at today?
Well, the number one advice I tell anyone is, don't try to be someone else. I think for a lot of us, we look at, like, let's use, since it's ladies' night, Erin Andrews as an example, who's obviously such a successful female in the sports space. I'm never going to be Erin Andrews. None of you guys are ever going to be Erin Andrews. So it's pointless for us to try to replicate her career or be like her. I always tell people, be the first and only you. Especially in an overcrowded media landscape, the only thing that is going to set you apart from anyone else is what makes you unique. If you're not interested in baseball, don't try to cover baseball, or try to do it in a way that's actually organic and suitable to you. Because I think so many people just want to get in the door, and they're trying to look at someone else's path, and they're trying to get the answers to the test. And with so many different avenues to do things now, you can do YouTube shows like we're doing now. You can write a blog or a Tumblr. I mean, TikTok has exploded. I mean, there's so many different ways for you to stand out. So don't try to be anybody else.
Very, very, very good insight, for sure.
Coach Stringer, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Hey, nice to meet you. I noticed you said that you are an emotional person, and I took that because I'm emotional, my passion too. So my question is, how do you balance that passion and emotion in your profession?
Nice to meet you too, Coach, and great question. That goes back to my previous answer of me just trying to be myself. When I first got into this, I didn't really know what I was going to be. I was a producer for 10 years. And then I was kind of hosting things and on the air, but I was strictly behind the scenes, and being a host was never really something that I coveted. It just kind of happened for me. And I remember when I got the opportunity to come home and host the morning show, Randy Carricker, who is now my co-host, I had produced for him before, and he's always been a great mentor and friend of mine. And I had gone to lunch with him, and I was talking to him, and I was like, Randy, I'm kind of nervous about this, because even though I know I'll be prepared and I know that I will, do my best to be a steward for St. Louis sports to the listeners, I kind of don't know what my role is, because I'm not a reporter. I'm not someone who's super into stats. I didn't play professionally. I haven't been in this space as long as someone like you has. I don't really know what to do or how to position myself. And he goes, you know what you are? He goes, you're a St. Louis girl who is a fan, and now you have access. Be the eyes and ears behind the scenes for someone who is like you. And I was like, that is the best advice ever, because when I consume media, that's what I want, right? I want to know about Adam Wainwright, the person, just as much as I want to know about Adam Wainwright, the pitcher. And I want to know what makes him tick, what his story is. How did he become great? How did he become the person that we look to today? And once I got that advice and I tried to really hone in on being who I am, I felt comfortable being emotional. I felt comfortable talking about things on air that frustrated me, or giving my opinion in that way, and not having to temper down who I am in any way. And I think that radio gives you the runway to do that in a way that TV might not, because in TV you're sometimes crunched for time, so you might not have the space to really showcase a lot of your personality. But in radio, we've got all the time in the world. So if I'm upset about something or I'm really excited about something, I can really show that part of myself, and that's part of the reason why I love the audio space so much.
That's dope.
Speaking of like Randy, there's so many cool guys that you work with at 101. You may not be on every show with them, but you talk to them. Like, how awesome is it to work with people, like Randy? You guys get to talk to Adam Wainwright on Wednesdays, Wednesdays with Wayno. You got Danny Mack sometimes, Brad Thompson, Anthony Stalter, just, the list goes on. Like, how awesome is it to work with guys like that?
It's the best. I consider myself like the luckiest person in media, because I have the best teammates ever. And as you guys know, on any team, it takes everyone pulling the rope the same way in order for you to have success. And I feel so lucky that I work at a place like 101 ESPN, where we all genuinely like each other and genuinely support each other and genuinely want everybody to win. Like, I'll be listening to the Fast Lane and hear them do something funny, and I'll text them on the group chat and be like, that was amazing, you guys. That was hilarious. I loved that. Or I will be driving down the road. I remember during the Stanley Cup playoffs, I was driving to an appointment and I was listening to BK and Ferrario, and they had an open to one of their segments, and I could not get out of my car. It was so good. I was late to my appointment, and I texted them and I was like, Tanner, who's their producer and is on air with them, I was like, I worked at the network, and that was the single best piece of audio that I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, amazing job. And they do the same for me. Like, they'll text us during an interview with Wainwright and be like, that was an awesome question. You phrased that so well. You extracted the best thing from him. We're going to use that later in the show. And so not only do I get to work with people who are really smart and great at what they do, they're genuinely awesome people that I'm lucky to call friends. So I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. They're truly the best.
I know we've had a good number of them on the show so far, and they're all awesome. Like, we got to talk to BT about 2 months ago, maybe. That was awesome. It was awesome to have Randy on. Working with Fred to try to get like Jamie Rivers on, because I feel like we've had just about every sport athlete on the show so far. And then obviously Danny Mack would be awesome. But the Blues in the playoffs, you and Randy got to walk around in the parade, interviewing people. How awesome was that?
It was better than I ever dreamt that it could be. I mean, how many of us talked about the Blues winning the Stanley Cup, and we would always say that parade down Market Street is going to be epic. It was so much more than that. It was truly joy. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it other than absolute joy. So from the second that Randy and I walked in that day when we were getting behind the barricades, there had been people that were there. I mean, they might have slept there overnight to get a front row seat. But by the time we arrived, which was super early because we had to get credentialed and get all the way through, there was 10 people deep already in line for the parade. And we were walking around everyone was smiling and everyone was just emanating happiness from their toes out through their hair follicles. It was just the best day. And then like the vibe was set, right? And then once the players arrived, it was unlike anything that I've ever seen. Now, some championship parades since then have had a little bit of this flavor, but I've never seen a parade, at least up until that point, where the players walked along the route and they got in the crowd with the fans and they were bringing the cup to people. Like I watched Alex Petrangelo carry the cup to elderly people who were in the front row who might not have gotten a chance to see it because they couldn't necessarily see beyond the crowd. And I saw him take someone out in a wheelchair and push them down Market Street. I mean, I followed Vladimir Tarasenko around for a while and he was hugging kids and signing autographs. People were crying. I followed Braden Shen and he was spraying champagne into people's mouths. Everybody was equal that day. And we were all, like we talk about pulling the rope the same way. Everybody was pulling the rope in St. Louis the same way that day. And for a city that can be really divided and have a lot of, conflict at times, it was the best of us. That day was the best of us. It's what we should all strive to be at all times.
I will say, you mentioned that, some other parades are starting to do that. No Blues players were almost arrested by, by the city's police because you had Tyler Matzik with the Braves. They almost arrested him. And then I can't remember who it was with the Avalanche, but they tried arresting him as well. So they don't know their players, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. And listen, there was a couple guys that you could make an argument for might have gotten like a public intoxication citation or something. But I think that all deaths were forgiven that day. But let me tell you, I described the parade as the best party I've ever been to.
Yeah, we weren't even nowhere near the front, but that was a ball. My husband lost me by the arch grounds. I found him crying. It was awesome. It was hilarious. I have one more sports-related question for you, and then a couple just fun ones. But, the Battlehawks, how cool was that, to be on the field, for the home opener, I guess you would call it. But, and hopefully we get it back, and will you be doing something like that again?
There were so many things that were taken from us during the pandemic, but the Battlehawks is at the top of the list for me, man. That was something else. To be a part of something literally from the ground up that was built for St. Louis was so special. And the people that were in charge of the Battlehawks, specifically Kurt Hunzeker, he knows this market and he knows what makes St. Louis tick. And I got a chance to be behind the scenes and watch the way that he curated this experience for St. Louis. And it was unbelievable. I don't know if I'll ever see anybody do a better job at something than he did, but it was just, and listen, St. Louis supports their sports teams no matter what. So I know that just like they did for the Battlehawks, they're going to support the MLS team, St. Louis City SC, when it starts. If the XFL comes back, they're going to support it. That's just what we do here in St. Louis. But there was a lot of salt in that football wound. We wanted to prove to Stan Kroenke and to the NFL that this was an amazing football market. So all of those things combined made it this incredible confluence of things that were contributing to how great it was. And I had never really done anything like that before. Like I always try to explain to people, when I'm on the radio, it's me and it's Randy and it's our producer, Matt, and we sit in this little room together, just the three of us chatting. I have no concept of how many people actually listen to us. When I go out and people recognize me or they want to talk to me about the show, I'm always floored when someone knows who I am, because it's not like I'm at a game normally and can see all of the people who can see me. So to be on the field and to have to do something unscripted in front of 30,000 people and know that I'm going to be on the Jumbotron, it was the scariest moment of my entire life, but it was also the most thrilling moment of my entire life. To get to hype up the crowd in St. Louis before football was ushered back into the Dome was something that will always be so special to me in my career. And then the adrenaline that you get in real time, if somebody scores a touchdown and then you get to grab them and interview them, it's firing on your brain and creativity in a way that doesn't necessarily exist in what I do now. And it was really awesome. And I'm so sad that they're gone. And I don't know what The Rock is doing. Come on, Dwayne. We are waiting for the announcement. Announce the Battlehawks coming back already. The clock is ticking.
He's busy being the Black Adam. That movie's coming out soon, so I guess that's what he's doing. But yeah, that was awesome. How all throughout the XFL you could interview guys, after they made a play, or I don't know. I had a lot of fun. I'm not a huge football fan. I'll watch it, but that was a lot of fun to watch, especially that game here in St. Louis.
Yeah, it was great. And unfortunately, everything shut down during the pandemic before the LA game, because not only was the lower bowl sold out, they had opened up the secondary bowl, and I believe that was sold out too. I think they were pushing like I know it was like over 40,000 people that were going to be there. I don't remember the exact number, but it was going to be by far the biggest crowd in the XFL, and that would have been a wild scene.
Yeah, that would have been awesome to see. Just some funny ones. Like, I don't think I've seen you drink beer, but I see wine. What's your favorite wine?
Oh, well, I'm a St. Louis girl, so I definitely love beer.
I don't see it on your socials as much. It's more like fancy kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, well, I was playing beer pong this weekend over the 4th of July, so don't you worry, that's in the mix too. I do not discriminate. But I am an Italian girl, and my favorite wine is a red wine called Valpolicella. So if you're ever out at a restaurant, if you like red wine at all, it is the best red wine out there. I convert people all the time. I feel like I should get paid to be a spokesperson for this varietal, because anywhere I go, if I'm with someone, I'm like, I'm ordering you a glass of this wine. It's going to change your life. So ladies, if you're out and you like red wine, Valpolicella is the way to go. Trust me.
I'm going to try that.
You should, Coach. You'll love it.
It's
like a good red. It's fruit forward, but and it's like full body, but not too strong. You could really have it with anything. It's delicious.
Was it sweet? Is it a sweet red?
It's got a fruit hint to it, but it's not sweet. It's not like a Moscato or a Riesling type sweet, but it's not dry.
Mm.
Well, I think Jack Daniels should sponsor me, so maybe both go head to head at these companies and see what they're talking about.
Okay, now I need to know, Michaela, what's your drink? Are you a Jack and Coke girl?
I'm a Jack and Ginger Ale girl.
Oh, I love that. I've never had that. I'll have to try it.
Yeah, Coke, just sodas in general are not really my thing. And ginger ale, I feel, is enough. It's got a little sparkle to it, but it doesn't take away from the taste. So it's just my go-to.
Okay.
But not right now, Michaela, because you're supposed to be doing 75 hard, right?
And I have not been drinking. I've been doing really good, Joe.
Okay, all right, just making sure.
I am still doing strong on 75 hard. This is the 3rd time I've had to start, but I'm strong.
Okay, well, I need to know, Michaela, because I've done 75 hard. What day are you on now?
I'm on 27 right now. But listen to this. I was 18 days in. So I got 3 days in, and I had to start over because I just could not get my second workout in. It just kind of happened. So whatever. I was like, 3 days, this is fine. It's cool. I'll just start again. I got to day 18, and it was the day that I was switching books. I had just finished my first book, and I was supposed to be starting a new one. I just didn't pick one out, and I went to bed without reading my 10 pages. So on day 18, I had to start over, and now I'm on my 3rd go around, and I'm on day, I believe, 27 or 28, and I'm going strong. So
you go, girl.
You got it, Michaela. I know you can do it. Listen, if I can do it, you definitely can do it.
There's no way I could do it. I just did a dry month, and that was good enough for me. So, so one of my favorite things, besides the Cardinals winning 16, 17 straight last year, was going on Twitter and seeing your Michael Scott scene. Like, me and my husband, we would do it every single time. Do you have a favorite Office episode, and what are you watching these days?
Oh, these questions are so good. Okay, so do I have a favorite Office episode? I feel like the reason that The Office is so great is because, like a great album, you know how when an album's so great, your favorite song changes all the time? I feel like with The Office, my favorite episode changes all the time. But I always go back to Fun Run. I think that the Fun Run might be the funniest episode for me. Just Michael Scott housing fettuccine before he attempts to run a 5K for rabies awareness is probably one of the funniest episodes out there. It's so good.
His stomach's like rock hard.
It's ridiculous. And you have the Pam and Jim dynamic, how their relationship is just kind of starting to blossom. So there's a lot of different elements to that episode. It's so good. I also love the episode where Michael Scott accidentally burns his foot on the George Foreman grill. It's just ridiculous. Some of this stuff, it's amazing. But as far as what I'm watching right now, I'm actually kind of in a TV lull because I'm, during baseball season, there's a game every night. So I don't have a ton of free time, but during my holiday break over the 4th of July, I started watching Loot, which is on Apple. I believe it's on Apple TV. Maya Rudolph stars in it, and she kind of plays, I guess she's kind of like Melinda Gates, Bill Gates's ex. So she's married to someone who is a billionaire who founded a tech company, and they end up getting divorced, and she gets half the money. And so it's about her running her philanthropy while not really knowing what she's doing. And it's so funny. So I highly recommend it. I know I think they're dropping an episode per week. So I need to get caught up, but I watched the first 3 and it was really funny.
What about you guys? You guys watching anything different?
I
Man,
just saw P-Valley.
on the Stranger Things bandwagon, I did, and I'm upset that I did because it's kind of scary and I don't really like it. The storyline is good and I love the characters, but that little devil thing, the portal,
Vecna.
but I have to finish it now because I'm so invested into the characters. So
What did you say, Coach Stringer? What you're watching?
I had started watching P-Valley and Good Girls.
What channel's that on? I haven't heard of that.
P-Valley is what network? I can't remember P-Valley, but Good Girls is on Netflix.
Okay, good. I'll have to watch
It's
it.
a very good show. It's about moms who are sacrificing their lives, robbing banks, and it's really good. I'm loving it. It's so funny. The robbing banks parts and trying to like find out who's the money laundering people. It's hilarious.
Okay, I'm in. You sold me. I'm in.
Annie, what about you?
Let's see. I already finished this season of Umbrella Academy. I watched The Boys, so caught up on that. And one of my favorite network shows, All Rise, got a reboot on the OWN network. So they have new episodes. So I've been watching those. So that's it for like new summer stuff.
I'm currently rewatching The Office, so I mean, why not?
I will tell you an interesting documentary that I just watched was the Marilyn Monroe documentary on Netflix.
I saw it. It's so good.
Yeah, isn't it so good? If you are a history buff or anything like that, or just like historical figures, I suggest watching that.
Before we have to go on to our actual like segments, my last fun one is what's like your favorite foods around St. Louis, and other than working and Cardinals games, Blues games, what do you like to do around the city?
Oh gosh, how much time do we have left? I don't know if I have enough time to list all the restaurants that I like in St. Louis. I mean, I feel like all I do is go out to eat with my friends. And St. Louis, I will put our restaurant scene here up against any city in the country. We really do have unbelievable restaurants here. But if I have to pick, I think my go-to is always Louis on Demond. That's my favorite spot. I've never had a bad bite there. It's amazing. But I also love Vicia, and I love their new Mexican concept that's out on the patio. I was there the other night. Amazing. If you like Mexican food and margaritas, that's a great spot. Indo is so good. I recently took a friend who was out of town to Indo, and that's really that whole little cluster there in Tower Grove, Union Loafers and Olio and Indo. I mean, there's so many good spots right there. See, I could go on forever. I mean, there's so many different places that I like to eat. But I would say outside of eating and hanging out with my friends in St. Louis. Okay, so I have one of my girlfriends is getting married this weekend here in St. Louis, and I have a ton of friends who are coming in from out of town. So I'm, of course, taking them to the Cardinals game, and we're doing a dinner, and we're doing drinks. But I told them, I go, even if it's so hot outside, we have to go to Forest Park because it really is the crown jewel of the city. And sometimes I need to not take for granted the fact that Forest Park is there. I try to at least a couple times a week go out there and go on a run, or I love a walk and talk. If I need to make a phone call or something, I'll go there and knock it out while I'm walking, because it really is such an amazing asset to the city that I need to sometimes take a step back and be like, this is so awesome that we have this here, and savor it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun things to do in St. Louis that we take for granted. It's just not one of those big, cities in the country that everyone talks about. We kind of get a bad rap, but yeah, there's a lot of fun things to do here.
We love St. Louis. Everybody on here does.
That's for sure.
I know that the ladies were interested in talking with you about, new media versus old media. Um, how do you describe those things, and how do you think that they compare?
New media, as in what we're seeing with social media, is that what you're talking about? Like podcasts versus terrestrial radio, things of that nature?
Joe and Michaela, what do you all
Yeah,
think?
I'll get into it. So this is actually, we'll just make this, we're going to go ahead and transition everybody. So for anyone who is just tuning in or is just now joining us, first of all, welcome our special guest, Michelle Smallman. We are so happy she's here. We just learned a little bit about her, how she got into the sports broadcasting radio world, her passion for sports, some things that she loves about St. Louis, some fun facts about her. All the above. Michelle's great. We are so happy to have her on the show. And also, you guys know that you can be watching us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And this show, if you are on YouTube, make sure that you hit the subscribe button so that you can get all of the updates and you can just watch all of our shows. But this will also be immediately uploaded live stream on Roku right after this, and you can always listen to us on Hot 365 Radio, either on the app or on their website. So we are going to go ahead and transition into the topics for today's show. So this is my drum roll, and we are going to go ahead and start with what Annie just brought up, the debate between what we are calling the real media versus the new media. And so, Michelle, when we say this, we have our real media who are going to be, the first takes, their ESPN talk shows, the ones that your radio show. You guys are real media, okay? Versus now what we're calling this new media, where we're seeing players come in and start their podcasts and have talk shows on YouTube where we're getting different perspectives. So, what is your take on real media versus now this new media that we're seeing?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting shift in the media landscape, right? Like when Draymond Green, after an NBA Finals game, goes and records a podcast, that changes things, right? It changes our access to players. It changes their need to get their side of the story or their narrative out through traditional or real media, as you're calling it. And I think that it's showing that there is room for everybody and there is room for different approaches to media. But I think that there's always going to be some sort of the traditional or real media out there, even with what we're seeing players doing in the new media space, because there's always going to be a network or a streaming platform or something that has the access to games. Live games is always going to be the most powerful commodity in the sports media world, bar none. And because of that, there's always going to be sports media networks, and there's always going to be a hierarchy with that. Now we're seeing companies like The Ringer come in and be huge forces in sports media, and they're not on ESPN or Fox Sports or whatever, but how many people are listening to Ringer podcasts? I mean, Barstool is such a great example too, of a guy who started a flyer that is now $1 billion sports media entity, right? And that is more about personality and less about actual hard analysis. There's some of that there, and there's obviously players who have shows there as well, but it's just showing that there's different avenues that you can take. And I think it's really cool that so many players are interested in getting into this space after they're done, or even while they're playing sports too, because that's a really valuable thing for a lot of fans to be able to have access to their favorite players in that manner.
Right. And I think that this whole real media versus new media is going to create a very interesting dynamic, because just like Michelle said, and being a former athlete, you love to hear from your favorite athletes. You want that insight. You want the in the locker room talk and what's really going on and what's really going through these players' minds when we're seeing trades and when a controversial issue comes up, and or maybe they're actually clapping back to something that someone in the real media has said to them, we get engaged with those things. We love it, right? But to Michelle's point as well, I don't think that we're going to see these traditional platforms go away anytime soon. But I see where we're going to start to see some conflict, possibly, is instead of having this, I guess, transition period where we have these professional athletes and these former athletes go into the traditional media realm, are we going to see more of them take a personal dive into podcasting, a personal dive into creating their own YouTube channels? And where are we going to see the shift there?
So I'll use this as an example. So Chris Long, excuse me, former St. Louis Ram, 2-time Super Bowl champion, amazing media guy now, has not only a podcast, but a podcast network. And he's made a seamless transition into media, just like most of us here in St. Louis knew that he would, right? Well, he was on my show a couple weeks ago and we were texting. Oh, let me take a drink of water. Hang on one second.
Please.
Sorry, my voice starts to go. I'm not used to talking for 2 hours straight. I mean,
right.
Commercial break. So sorry, my voice is a little delicate, but but I was talking to Chris and I was like, how is hold on, I'm gonna need you to vamp for me for a second here. Hang on one second. Sorry about this, ladies. Hang on.
Okay. Well, Annie, I feel like this is something that you would have a lot to speak on. I know you're Miss Opinionated Shawty. So what do you think?
No, I don't have an opinion on this topic, actually.
Really?
So, what do you think?
I just think, especially with Draymond stepping out, I think it's just, again, just going to create that interesting dynamic. I don't think that either platforms are going to anytime soon, but it's just a matter of how many players are we going to see now step into this realm of podcasting and really kind of diving into their lives and into this different avenue and getting us different takes. And how much is that going to take away from people in the media who are trying to do their job and tell those stories? I just see this going so many different ways. I don't think it's going to be necessarily, detrimental to either or. It's just, how is there going to be that balance?
Okay, sorry, I'm back. The voice is a little rough, but I'm back. So back to what I was saying, I was talking to Chris about it and I was like, how's it going? And he's like, it's good, but it's really hard to come up with content to fill an hour, sometimes more, of a podcast 3 times a week. And I think, you guys, I don't know if this voice is going to hang on for the remainder of the show, but I'm going to give it my best. But I think, like, for someone like me, I've gone to school for media and I've produced for 10 years. I know what an interesting topic is. I know how to build a topic. When I'm listening to something, I know when a topic is done and when to pivot. I have studied the art of the interview. I know how to get something out of someone. And I think a lot of these players, obviously they have the insight and the opinion that we all crave, but do they know how to interview somebody? And more importantly, do they know how to make something interesting? Because they're going to have the audience. Like, so many people have podcasts out there today, but it's kind of like, if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it happen? If you have a podcast and no one listens, is it really a podcast, or is it just you and your friends talking into the abyss? You know what I mean? Right. So these athletes will always have an audience because they're the reason that we tune into sports. They have the platform, right? But it's getting people to come back. That's the problem. Because if you tune in and they're not interesting, or they really don't have a lot to say, you might be like, I listened, but I'm not going to continue to come back. Like, if you look at the most consistent sports talk podcasts that are out there, I mean, the Barstool guys are amazing interviewers. Part of my take is, regardless of what you think about Barstool, those 2 guys not only get the best guests on, they make headlines every single week, which is really hard to do. I worked with Ryan Russillo for years. I know how talented he is. That guy watches every single game. Okay. He's got 3 TVs up on his wall and he has not missed one NBA game and takes all of these notes. How many of those guys are actually, when they're done playing, going to put in the work to do that? And they will always have what I don't have, which is the experience. And that is so valuable. But I also wonder how many of these guys will want to do it for a long time. When you've made millions of dollars and you've had a really strict schedule and you've had to grind your entire career, the podcast world may be fun for a few years, but after 2 years of having to come up with content and really, really work to get this thing going and put it out. I don't know about you. I'd be like, let me sit back and enjoy my money and enjoy my life. I don't want to work this hard. So I think there'll always be a fresh crop of athletes that are interested in it. And it's going to be so fun to see which, personalities emerge in that space. But there's so much more to it than just cracking a mic and talking. There's a real art to the craft. And I think the ones that'll be really great at it will be the ones that put in the work.
So much art to the craft, but also when you got that money, the shmoney talks, if you can put a team together and you can get people to create content for you, if you just have to be the face, if you just have to show up and give your opinion and get people to come onto your podcast or whatnot, because who wouldn't want to? They're going to meet whichever ex-nay professional player and or personality is on there. It's going to boost the person who's a guest, probably their following, and grow their brand. I mean, I don't know, Michelle. This might be a thing. This might be an issue right now.
Okay, but let's look at what is probably arguably the best player run media entity that we've seen in recent years, and that's the Manning cast. Because not only was it tied into a live broadcast, which showed Peyton Manning's cerebral approach to the game and gave us unbelievable insight into the way that he views the game tactically. He and Eli, they can call up Tom Brady or Gronk or Russell Wilson or literally any celebrity out there that is going to come on their show and talk to them. But they also have a team of the best producers in the world through ESPN who are coaching them up on how to be great and who know how to put the graphics right and cut away to the game as opposed to having them talk. I mean, you have to have the right team to do it. You're absolutely right. And they definitely have the money to put it together, but do they know how to hire the right people? You know what I mean? So I just look at some people who have done it great, and a lot of them have ties to real or traditional media that make it really good.
That is a fact. I agree with that. Does anyone have anything else they want to add to this topic?
Well, I know before we get to Joe's take on it, I know that Coach Stringer has to leave us a little bit early tonight. So thank you, Coach. Good luck in Kansas City tomorrow.
Thank you.
If you do not feel comfortable posting your kid's stat line after a poor game, you can text it to me. I will create an Instagram account if I don't have one, just to go on there and post their stat line.
For rolling
I'm bringing Shane back.
I got you. I got my cameraman too, so I'll film and send you the bad takes of it, so you can do that for me.
I appreciate that. We'll connect. We will definitely connect. So good luck to Coach Stringer and her team as they go play in Kansas City tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting you as well.
Nice to meet you, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you much. See you guys later.
Bye. All right, Joe, did you want to weigh in on this?
I don't know. It's like John Boy Media. You mentioned Barstool a lot. Not that I agree with everything John Boy always has to say, because I'm sorry, Michelle, if you see my jersey, I am an Astros fan. I love the Cardinals too, but I've heard you be negative about the Astros on there before. It's okay. It's okay.
I just don't like cheaters, Joe. That's all.
But hey, they just said that the Yankees did in 2015 when the Yankees beat them, meaning the Astros beat them in Yankee Stadium with not that good of a team. But anyway, so I really love John Boy Media. That's something I like to watch all the time. And Chris Rose, used to be on MLB Network, and with the pandemic, there was cuts there. And now he's part of their team as well with Trevor Plouffe. They're just called Baseball Today. And Chris Rose himself actually gets, players that are playing right now or former players, has even had umpires on there as well. But I really like those interviews. Like he had Wainwright on a couple months ago, I think it was, and I like to believe that I'm the one that got Wayno on there, because I tweeted at Chris Rose that with his, it's a mouthful, old man after pitching walk, whatever it is, it's mouthful.
The day after pitching old man walk.
There you go. But I tweeted at Chris Rose saying, you need to get Wayno on there. He's still doing his thing. He's got that. He likes to interact with the fans, and he's just a good guy. And they, tweeted back at me, and they made it happen, So I don't know. I like seeing what Chris Rose and Trevor Plouffe have to do. They kind of just, if you guys don't see it, they just go through and do like the top 5 topics of the night before in Major League Baseball, and like you guys said earlier, it does help get the players that are on there. It helps their brand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. John Boy's great, right? But even to what you just said, Chris Rose is a vet in this game, right? He worked for MLB Network. He's done all sorts of stuff with media entities. He knows what it takes to host and produce a good show. He knows what good content is. So I think it's really cool when there's the marriage of a new school approach with something like John Boy and somebody like Chris Rose, who had been in more of the traditional media space.
Yeah, and it's nice seeing John Boy grow. It used to just be him and Jimmy for a little bit talking Yankee stuff, but now it's, they got, like we said, Chris Rose on there. Trevor Plouffe does his breakdowns of plays. Like last year, he did the one of that double play against the Mets during our 16-game winning streak. And it's nice to see, a former Major League player give his insight on what's going on in the game as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of craziness going on in the WNBA. It is WNBA season right now, and the hottest topic, or at least what a lot of these players want to be the hottest topic, is that Brittany Griner is still detained overseas in Russia. So we are going to go ahead and start talking about this, and just a little bit of background information. Brittany Griner has again been detained in Russia for about 4 months now, since February, for being found with cartridges that contained, some THC pins. Basically, that's what's being alleged right now. She is set to be on trial, but WNBA players, NBA players, professional athletes from all walks of sports are coming together and saying that our government needs to do more to get Brittany Griner back to the States. And Brittany Griner has written a personal letter to the President of the United States. I'm going to read just a snippet of that letter right now. She says, "As I sit here in a Russian prison, alone with my thoughts and without the protection of my wife, family, friends, Olympic jersey, or any accomplishments, I'm terrified I might be here forever." She continued, "I realize you are dealing with so much, but please don't forget about me and the other American detainees. Please do all you can to bring us home." Again, this letter addressed to President Biden. So, panelists, let's go ahead and get into it. What are your thoughts on Brittany Griner now reaching out directly to the president for help?
Annie, you go first.
I don't have a lot of thoughts. Like we talked about, she's been detained for 4 months now, and not much has changed except official charges actually being brought. And her wife had a phone call today with President Biden and Vice President Harris. And yeah, so it's the same as it was before. I just, I think the United States is being extremely hypocritical right now to charge someone with human rights violations and abuses, and as a result, not letting, two of the top 100 Russian tennis players in the world play in in upcoming tournaments, while we're engaging in our own infractions against humanity and our citizens. And so I just find a lot of hypocrisy in this situation. I think the conversation is being steered in the wrong direction to use this to talk about player shares and revenues in the WNBA, because I don't think even players being paid more or having a higher revenue split would have addressed the situation. I think pay equity in the WNBA is a separate issue, but I don't think it's tied to this. I don't think that it would have prevented or would prevent WNBA players from playing overseas, because the money that they make there is still exponentially larger than what they would make even with a larger revenue share from the WNBA. And so the only focus needs to be on getting Brittany home, and multiple schools of thought on how that gets done. But I think that that is really the only thing that should be a focus in this story, unless we're going to own our own stuff as a country. And the stuff that needs to be talked about has not changed marginally in 5 months.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I don't really know too much about the whole situation, but 4 or 5 months, I don't know. It seems kind of like something small that, she's being stuck over there for, but I just feel like you just need to get her home. It shouldn't be taking this long.
Miss Michelle, you have anything weighed in on this?
Yeah, just from a humanity standpoint, you try to put yourself in someone else's shoes, and I cannot imagine what she's enduring over there. I mean, gosh, she hasn't been able to actually speak to her family for 4 months. And who knows what else is happening behind the scenes. My heart just breaks for her, because I can't imagine being put in that situation. And I know that obviously this is getting some headlines, and people in the WNBA are calling for her release and calling on our government to do things, as you mentioned, people in the NBA and other sports. But I think what is really an issue right now when it comes to the Brittany Griner situation is that there's so many horrific things happening in our country that what should be a really big headline, and that should be something that is really prominent and that we're all talking about and that we're all clamoring for and putting pressure on our government to go out there and do what they can to help her. It's really hard when every day you turn on the news and there's something else horrific that's happening. It's really hard to keep your focus on and apply the pressure on a situation like this when every day you're like, oh, it's another mass shooting, or you're talking about Roe v. Wade or a climate crisis. It just feels like there's one thing after another. And so what would be something that I think would be a headline and leading a lot of shows and stuff seems like it's just kind of falling down by the wayside. And that's really a shame. And I'm hoping that it doesn't get swept under the rug altogether, and that we keep talking about it so that she can come home safely.
Mm-hmm. Now, we did get confirmation that the White House has received this letter. A statement put out by the White House says that the president did read the letter. This is an issue that is a priority for the president. We believe she is wrongfully detained. We believe she needs to come home. Again, I think this is where we are seeing a lot of controversy, because we can just take a situation like this back, I believe, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where LaMelo Ball was detained in China because he and several of his teammates were stealing items out of the shop, I believe. That was the situation. And it was at that time President Trump had to go over, and whatever he did or didn't do, I guess we'll never really know the back end details of that, but he went and got involved and was able to get those boys home. And we are seeing the Phoenix Mercury coach come out and really speak highly of this. And she said, Phoenix Mercury coach Vanessa Nygaard says on Brittany Griner Entertainment, if it was LeBron, he'd be home, right? And so we can kind of talk about that, us being women, and we already talk about the disparities in men's and women's sports, especially at the professional level. And even though the pay and all of that is irrelevant to this topic, do we think if it was a professional NBA player that this circumstance would be different right now?
All right, you guys know I don't watch basketball, but I'm just going to say from a human standpoint, I don't even think it needs to be LeBron. It could be just some normal guy in the NBA or any other sport. I do think that they, probably would be home by now. But I mean, like Michelle said, there's so many, this is one of the things, in the country that gets brought up all the time and that we talk about all the time here on Ladies Night is women get treated differently, and that's just how it is. Like, we shouldn't have to sit there and agree with that and just take it, but sadly, that's how it is. And there's other things going on in the world that are not more serious, but are getting more bigger headlines. But I do think if it was even just some Joe Schmo in the NBA, they'd probably be back.
Yeah, I agree. And it's sad. It's sad that there's not too much more that we can say on this topic. But again, to her teammates and to everyone in the WNBA, NBA, and beyond who are advocating, and for fans who are advocating and speaking on her behalf to try to make some type of effort to raise awareness and bring her back home, we are with them. We stand with them. Brittany Griner, we stand with you. And we hope that you can get back to United States as soon as possible, back with your family and your loved ones, and here with us where you belong, ma'am. So our thoughts and prayers are up in that situation. We're going to keep it moving, and we're going to stick with basketball, Joe, but we're going to be talking money and not about plays and all of that. So don't worry. You can chime in on this. Are we chasing paper, or are we chasing championships? That seems to be the talk of the town right now, because we are seeing all of these new contracts rolling out in the NBA. Guys getting top dollar. STL's very own Bradley Beal getting a maximum extension contract. We will get into the numbers here shortly. But Annie, kick us off. Do you feel like we have players these days who are chasing paper or chasing championships?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to this discussion either. I think it's up to the player what they want to do, and people are allowed to have different motivations for what gets them out of bed in the morning and ready to go to work. So I don't think it's for anyone to judge which one is better or which motives are correct, or whether or not those motives can change over the course of a career. So I don't paper watch. I don't pocket watch. I don't get mad at how much players are getting paid. I don't begrudge anyone for taking money. I don't begrudge anyone for wanting to win championships. I think it's up to each individual player.
Mm-hmm. Well, since we already mentioned Bradley Beal, we can go ahead and talk about those numbers now, since he is from St. Louis. I feel a player that we all know and love. All-star guard Bradley Beal has agreed to a 5-year, $251 million maximum contract to stay with the Washington Wizards. Now, the Wizards have been struggling for God knows how many seasons. They are just struggling to get into the playoffs. They're struggling to win games. Beal has openly expressed his concern and his, I would say, frustration with losing and not really feeling like he has the pieces around him to do what he would like to do with his team. But he went ahead and he signed the contract, because at the end of the day, who would really turn down that much money? But when you're a young player like that, and you might feel, or at least fans are feeling, the only way to really prove your worth, prove that you are this all-star, this top tier player that you are claiming that you are, saying that you are in the NBA, but you're not winning and you're not getting any championships. How does that weigh on the mark that a player makes in their career?
Do you want me to take this one?
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. I didn't know if anyone else had anything to say. I didn't
Your
want to
voice should be good to go now.
Yes, I drank a lot of water, so I hope that it holds up. Let me tell you, this is a fragile instrument. I have to drink tea every day with honey. Having a deep voice is really hard when you're a talk show host. But I think that if you're a player, everyone has different motivating factors, and that's really hard for fans to understand, because a lot of people think that athletes should be driven by one thing and one thing only, and that's greatness. And how can you be great unless you have the hardware to back it up, right? But you don't really know someone's circumstances. You don't know how many family members that they have to take care of. A lot of these athletes are worried about getting injured and having an opportunity to never play again. And so they want to make sure and get the bag while they can. And I don't begrudge them for that. I also look at somebody like Kevin Durant, guys, who the big knock on him was that he hadn't won a championship. He goes to Golden State and he wins a championship and he's an NBA Finals MVP. And what does everyone say? Oh, you had to join a super team to get your rings. So for some of these guys, they're like, even if I do win, it's not going to be enough for some people. So why don't I just go ahead and get the money and do what I need to do. When I look at Bradley Beal, personally, I wanted him to get out of Washington because I think he's an amazing player and I want him to have the chance to win. But then also we look at somebody like Yadier Molina, and yes, he's a different case study because he's won World Series titles, but we laud him because he stayed in St. Louis his entire career. Look at the loyalty that guys like Waino and Yadi have. That's so rare in sports. And it's like we talk out, as fans out of both sides of our mouths. It's like, you have to win a championship to be great, but oh no, we don't like the way that you did it. We don't like the path that you took to get there. Oh, you shouldn't be taking the bag, or you shouldn't be securing the bag. You should be trying to go out there and win. Oh, wait, but we love these guys because they're loyal. It's like you're never going to be able to please everybody. And I think if you're Bradley Beal too, think about if he gets the money, stays in Washington, and somehow they find the way to put the team around him and he wins there, being the guy who stayed. That's a really good scenario too. And we also forget that these guys are human beings and they have families and they want to live in a city that they like, in a community they like, in a place where an organization where maybe they feel comfortable or have good relationships. You know, we forget about what it's like. Like when I talk to Adam Wainwright every week, we talk about the clubbies that he talks to, or his trainers, or you know, his pitching coach. There's so many people that these guys are coming into contact with every day. And for some of them, they want that stability. Yes, it's securing the bag and cashing the checks, but it's also probably about a way of life and being in an organization that you like and that you feel like values you, you know? And I think that that's one of the things as sports fans is we tend to take a really micro view when a lot of times there's a lot of nuance and more of a macro view that needs to be taken in every individual situation.
And with that, I kind of think of Chris Bryant, for example. You know, he's already won the Rookie of the Year, the MVP. He's got the ring. But then he goes and signs with Colorado. You know, like everyone, it's kind of like a head scratcher for everyone. But, you know, it's a place, he has a son, and I think he has twins on the way. He loves the organization, the city around him. He's going to take the money, and he just, you know, that's kind of like with the topic, you know, are people chasing rings now? Are they chasing paper? I think, you know, Brian, he still wants to win, but he's already accomplished that. Now he just wants stability for him and his family. And, you know, he likes the area and the organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's really going to be better for Chris Bryant in his career than being the guy on the Cubs that broke the curse? I mean, I hate to say it because he is a good baseball player, but do we disagree that he's peaked in his career? I mean, just from an emotional high, and whenever his resume is rolled out, that's at the top of the list, right? Mm-hmm. No matter what he accomplishes, it was the biggest story in sports for so many years was the Cubs curse. And he was on the team that did it. And he was one of the superstars on the team that did it. So I don't begrudge him at all for wanting to go to Colorado. It's a great place to live. Yeah, it's an organization that isn't having a lot of success, but you're getting hundreds of millions of dollars to be in a great place to live. Not a bad life.
Yeah. The real question is, Michelle, was your dad in the stadium when the Cubs won?
He was not. He would not be cheering for the Cubs. No way, never. He's a good St. Louis boy. He hated that day.
Yeah, that was a brutal day out here.
Yeah, I do think that there's some level of rudeness about announcing people's salaries. And so to open with whatever the money is, it's always said with some level of like, can you believe they got paid that? And it's like, can you believe how much that team is worth? And he deserves every penny of that. So I think it's again, out on pocket watch. You get paid what you get paid. And the other thing is that when people sign contracts, because they're large amounts of money, people assume that the reason why it was signed is because of the money. And it's like, it could have been because he has 2 small kids and a wife. And maybe Mrs. Beal was like, you know where we not going to go? Wherever else this team is trying to send you that is looking for, you know, you're not about to go. We are not about to go live in Salt Lake City and join the Jazz. We are not about to move to OKC because everybody who plays for OKC now is like 6'6". And, you know, they're all the tall towers or whatever. So they kind of need somebody who can play, you know, point guard or shooting, just anything smaller than a 4 or 5, right? And so maybe that was the factor. But at the end of the day, the numbers are going to be what the numbers going to be. But people just assume that was the deciding factor. When, this is his second eligibility for a large contract. He's 29. This is probably going to be his last opportunity for one, because he is okay. I don't think he's going to be somebody who, like, at 34, we're going to be like, oh, wow, some team is a Bradley Beal away from a championship. But it's like, anywhere he goes, he was going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. And so to assume that that was the deciding factor is, again, an assumption. Unless he says, I'm going to go with whoever pays me the most money. It's just that that was the contract he had to sign, and that was the numbers that were attached to it. But you don't know that that was necessarily the deciding factor. And so I just think it just gets into pocket watching. Like, even if in my next job I make more money, you can't assume that that was the reason why I took that job. So I think it just gets into these conversations that are really, like, in some ways none of our business, and then in other ways are like I think, like you were saying, Michelle, like, there's no right answer. It's not a should they do this or should they do that. It's everybody has different reasons for why they do the work that they do, and each of those reasons is valid, and just let it ride.
I also love people who say, I can't believe he took the money. Are you going to take less money at your job? If someone offers you a huge pay increase of guaranteed money, are you going to turn it down? Because
I might. Not all money is good money. There has to be like if it was, do you want to make $107,000 here or $107 million here? Then that's enough of a difference to factor in. If it's like, we can offer you $215 million, this other team that's a championship contender, has a better run organization, would get you into a better situation, can offer you $208 million. Like, that is when you're talking in those numbers, to me, that margin, while to us is like, that's $7 million. But if you've already bagged hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't think that 7 million necessarily is going to be the difference maker if there are other things that you value about work. If you only value the salary, then I feel like that's enough a decision maker. If you're like, I'm tired of working for a dysfunctional organization, or I want to close out my career in my hometown, or, the place where I went to college or whatever, or I want to go play with these teammates and be around them, or I'm trying to position myself for, life after sports, because this is likely going to be my last contract. So I need to start putting down some roots in the coast. So, like, either New York or LA, so I can be closer to those media markets. Like, I do think that there are reasons why, when the difference is marked, because again, it's not the difference between getting 215 million or making my little six-figure salary. Like, it's the margins are thin when you get to that point, where I think you would take less money to go somewhere else if there was something that you prioritized.
I feel like the most obvious example is Albert. Like, he took more money and he could have stayed here. And honestly, as a Cardinals fan, and as, like, I was in high school when that happened, so I was upset, but it was probably for the best, because, like, he still had his decent Albert years in LA, but it wasn't anything like we saw here in St. Louis, so but that's something like, like you were saying, Annie, there's other ways to look at it. He took more money to go be with an organization that, maybe at the time it kind of looked like they were going somewhere, but we were still going to the playoffs constantly. He had a better chance of winning another ring, but I don't care about that anymore. He's here, his farewell, also, but that's like a good prime example in my eyes.
Yeah. Now, it might not be none of our business, and we might never ever know the deciding factors behind this, but the fact of the matter is, the information is out there for us to see, and so that's why we get to talk about it. And you guys know me, I always seem to find myself in this indifferent category. I feel like I'm always splitting the fence when it comes to this topic. If the players should choose the money or if they should choose to go and pursue winning and championships, because the game is always more fun when you're winning, right? I feel like when you get to such a high level and you're in the pros and you're making all of this money, it does take the sting of losing off a little bit. And that's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. And then when you're a competitor, you compete, and losing's gonna suck regardless. But when you get to go home and say that you just made, $50,000 for one game that you just played tonight, I mean, I can go home and go to bed and not be too mad. You know what I'm saying? Or however many that X amount of dollars is.
But you would be less mad than if you had made $48,000 for that game.
Well, if I won, I mean, what's $2,000?
No, you said if you lost, but you made $50,000.
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't be mad. No. But if you made $48,000 for that game, then you would be mad.
No, I mean, I'm saying if you go into bed and you lost and you're making money, that's what I'm saying. The money will take the sting of losing away a little bit, which is why I feel like we see players stick with teams where they're getting these enormous contracts, because they're not as concerned with losing anymore when you're making that much money. But with that being said, I also still believe in the principle of competing. And that's where I get a little bit torn, is because I want to see these players making the money. I want to see them, get into the bag. I want to see them taking care of their families. At the end of the day, the ball's going to stop bouncing for everybody. I'm hoping that they're using this money to create plans and businesses and investing it in ways to where it won't even matter. But you also want to see your favorite players win. I want to see Chris Paul get a championship ring. I'm sad I'll never see Carmelo Anthony get a ring. Like, those are the players that you love, you want to see win. And so it's hard to sit back and be like, to someone who, Annie, to your point, who has made so much money, and your first contract you made, $198 million for 4 years. Okay, well, if you've already bagged so much, does it really hurt to take a little bit less and go win somewhere and add that to your legacy as a player? And again, you have to take into account in all the factors. They do have to consider their families, who they're taking care of, who they have to pay out, their bills, what's going on. But if we're just strictly talking about the game and we remove all of those other factors, strictly talking about the game, Annie, you just said you wouldn't necessarily just stay at a job because they were offering you more money. At some point, it has to be about your legacy as a player at this level, I believe.
I think legacy is one of those things that some people care about and some people don't. I think that there are people who have demonstrated that they don't care what you think of their legacy, and they're not doing this for the royal you, not anyone like in particular, but the royal you. They're not doing it for that reason. I think it's something that fans care about, because we have to do sports talk shows where we ask who's better, LeBron James or Michael Jordan. And then we go rings, right? Like, that's for us. I don't know that there are definitely players who probably feel like, something about my career is incomplete without that. And there are other players who are like, I can't believe I even got 12 years in the NBA. Like, that was amazing. That was incredible. Never thought that would have happened. I could die now and be happy. So again, I just think it's a contrivance of old media, new media, real media, fake media, whatever it is, to get into these discussions about what players should choose and speculating about who's choosing what for what reasons. Like, I feel like that's more for us than it is for them, because they're not a monolith.
Well, Annie, we can all just use our imaginations and just pretend and put scenarios together for the sake of conversation. That's very true. But I agree with you. At the end of the day, players are gonna pick what they want. You're either going to support them or you're not. We don't know what's going on in the back end of everything. But again, I say get your money. Get your money. I'm all here for it. But I personally, and I'll only speak for me, I do like to see the players who I support and love win. I just do. It's just the athlete in me. It's just how I feel. But I do get it, you know. You got to
also keep in mind, ladies, that a lot of these guys that are getting max deals, or if you're the quarterback that's going to get the big contract, you think you're the best. Mm-hmm. If you're in that position, you've been told you're the best and you know that you're really good. And a lot of these guys think, I'm the one that's going to drive the bus. I'm the piece that needs to be locked down because I can win. Yeah. And by the way, they're having front office executives tell them and their agents, if you sign this super max deal or whatever, we're going to build the team around you. A lot of times we on the outside look at the way the team is currently constructed and think, why would they ever sign there? They'll never have a chance to win. We also forget about the conversations that they're having behind closed doors about what is going to happen in the future, a la Nolan Arenado with the Rockies. I mean, when he signed that deal with the Rockies, they promised him that they were going to build the team around him. Yeah. He thought that he was staying there to win. They didn't follow up on their end of the deal, but also he's like, I'm a future Hall of Famer. I know that I'm the one that needs to be locked down first for us to even have a chance. So we forget oftentimes that these guys have egos that allow them to think that they might not need a lot of the other pieces in order for it to get done. They're thinking that they're getting both in that scenario. They're thinking I'm getting the bag and I'm also being in a position to get the ring.
Right. Good point, Michelle. Very good point. We are going to go into what's in your glass, ladies edition. This is going to be our time where we all kind of just talk about topics that are in the sports world that we didn't necessarily have in the rundown, but we want to touch base on that we haven't gotten to yet, or maybe just something that's going on in the world, something going on in your life. This is our time to just chop it up, have some fun. I think I'm going to go ahead and kick us off because we touched base on the Cardinals. We talked about their pitching. They are going through a slump right now. We know that. So I think let's just go ahead and talk about our Redbirds real quick.
I'd rather not. But
some insight.
They're about to lose their 6 out of 7 games. I don't know. It's been rough to watch, that's for sure. We got injuries with Bader and O'Neill. Hopefully they come back. There was on the 4th of July a ball that fell in front of, it was either Yepes or Donnie, Brennan Donovan out in left field, and O'Neill's not going to let that happen, and Bader's not going to let that happen. So it's fun seeing all of these kids come up, Yepes and Donovan and Gorman, but not Gorman more so, but like Yepes and Donovan. I don't like seeing them in the outfield every single game. And I do think it kind of hurts our defense a little bit, which is, I think we can all agree defense is a reason why we went on to win 16 straight games last year and why we were so good. Obviously the Gold Gloves back it up. So I don't know. It's just been right now all around ever since the Cubs took 2 of 3 at Busch Stadium a couple of weeks ago. It just hasn't been going good, and it's been a rough stretch of games. So hopefully they can turn it around soon. Mm-hmm. We'll see. I don't want it to be like last year we're 8 behind the Brewers, but the Brewers haven't been playing that great either. Honestly, they just lost the series to the Cubs at home, split with the Pirates in Pittsburgh, but we haven't made up any ground because we're losing too. So it's just kind of rough right now.
Yeah, Michelle. Other than pitch. We've already touched base on. What do you think that we need to see from this Cardinals team to get back on track?
Well, I think Joe brought up a good point. Tyler O'Neill's not there. He wasn't having the season that everyone anticipated that he would before he got injured. But we've seen how important Tyler O'Neill is to the Cardinals. And I think a lot of people forget how important Harrison Bader is to the Cardinals. He might not be in the conversation the way that Paul Goldschmidt or Nolan Arenado is, but Randy always has a stat, and I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not going to try to completely regurgitate it. But last year when Harrison Bader was healthy and in the lineup for the Cardinals, they were something like 16 games over 500. He has the exact numbers. And when he wasn't, they were like, let's say 3 to 5 games under 500. I mean, he is a guy that really makes this team run. He's kind of like Oscar Sundquist was for the Blues. He wasn't Ryan O'Reilly or David Perron or Jordan Binnington, but he was an engine. He was a guy that helped the team really go. And when you think about the Cardinals, what allowed them to be so successful last year and what's also playing out this year, it's their defense. I mean, they're an historic team when it comes to Gold Gloves and defense for a reason, right? And Harrison Bader is kind of the quarterback of that, being in center field. And without him there, they're missing a huge piece. So I think you get Bader back. You hopefully get a healthy Steven Matz back, which will improve the rotation. If Tyler O'Neill can come back and be the dynamic player we know he's capable of, that's huge. And as we talked about earlier, ladies, they have to go out and get some starting pitching health. You can't rely on Jack Flaherty coming back, and you know that more injuries are going to be coming down the pipeline too. So I think get healthy and then go out and make a move.
Yeah. I have a question about that. So I was listening to some of your colleagues in the national media, and they were talking about just the concept of the starting pitcher overall is on the decline because of, analytics and those sorts of things. And it's more about, wanting to do one-to-one matchups with who's at bat versus who do we have in our bullpen. And I know that you've mentioned a couple of times having a starter pitcher. Do you think that there's another pathway where it's pitching by committee, or do you really think that there has to be, kind of like a Mad Bum or someone like that to really anchor this team in terms of pitching?
I would love to see them go out and get a guy that can go deep into games. The bullpen has really been stepping up for the Cardinals in a big way recently, but you can't risk burning them out and burning those arms out. And I would love to see a guy that could go 6, maybe 7 innings for you, just really eat up those innings. And Madison Bumgarner is a guy that can do that for you. I think that would be huge. But to your earlier point, I read that article. We had Buster Olney on the show today. We've talked about, with Adam Wainwright specifically, about this very topic because he's a dying breed. Adam Wainwright is a starting pitcher. He's not just a thrower. He is a crafty pitcher that is going to make you work. He throws off speed. He's just different than a lot of these guys we're seeing today that are coming in and it's max effort all the time. And that's why we're seeing so many guys blow off their arms and have shorter careers or not be able to go more than a few innings because it takes so long for your arm to reset when you're going max effort all the time. And that's why I know that there's always cycles in sports and different things, but if I was a young pitcher, I would follow Adam Wainwright around like a shadow. I would say, how are you the way that you are? Because I want to have a career that not only has the success, but the longevity that you have. And I think a lot of these guys are getting injured so frequently that I would look at somebody like Adam Wainwright, especially if I was in the front office, and say, how can we shift this model? How can we make sure that we're taking the talent of these pitchers and we're making sure that the health also stays there and maximizing what they can do? But that goes all the way deeper into not only the minor league level and the collegiate level, but the high school level. These kids are getting taught to pitch in a different way.
Yeah, Wainwright has a lot of arrows in his quiver, right? He can do lots of different things, which is why he can go, so many innings deep into the game. Whereas, like you saying, which is like you are saying in terms of a lot of people now are trying to specialize, right? So we're losing the benefit of the generalist who can do a lot of things well. And we're just trying to have, I just throw this one pitch better than anybody. So yeah, I definitely think that we see that happening. And in terms of your conversations with management and front office, how do you see them weighing going with the trends of a sport, right? So maybe being tempted to follow the analytics of like baseball and maybe this, pitching by committee, or staff yourself with a bunch of specialists. Or like in basketball, if we're saying, okay, so the teams that have won the last couple of championships, have gone small ball, played 5 out. The 3 is becoming a more efficient shot. And then you see people zag when other people are zigging. How have you witnessed managers, front office people sort of manage that balance between the when to zig with everybody else versus when to zag?
I think it varies by sport and it varies by team. For example, in baseball, the analytics movement is so prevalent. That's what everybody's doing. It's really the driving force in a lot of decisions for these front office executives and the way that they build teams. But then I look at a team like the Blues, And even though speed and skill in the NHL is important, and the Blues made strides towards shifting their team that way a little bit more than what we saw in 2019, they still have a very specific ethos and what Craig Berube wants to do and the type of team that they want to deploy. And they're going out and looking for players that are going to fit into the puzzle that they've already created. And so I think every team is different, but that's one thing I love about the Blues is even though they look at recent trends in hockey and they certainly understand that the game is evolving, they stick to what they know is going to work for their core.
While we're
Seems
on
like they've been following your advice about how to make it in this business. Be the best and only version of you and not try to replicate somewhere else. So they've been following the Michelle Smallman playbook.
That's right. And every team, to your point, Annie, is a copycat in some way. Like the Rams won the Super Bowl because Les Snead said famously, F them picks, and went out and traded all the picks to bring in star players. What are we seeing other general managers do now in the NFL? They're saying F them picks, and they're going out and doing it. When Bill Belichick wins the Super Bowl, everybody is trying to pawn off Patriots assistant coaches to replicate that magic. It's so rare that we see a team say, this is something really different that we've identified and we're going to kind of do our own thing. In sports, everybody tries to replicate what they're saying as far as success is concerned. It's very annoying.
We got a question from Miss Williams. She asked, do pitching coaches play a part? Are they encouraging the all-out effort as opposed to using a more varied approach?
I think, again, it depends on the pitcher and it depends on the team. I'm sure that, in their preparation, when they're scouting the opponent and scouting the opposing pitcher, they do their homework. So they know that every batter is going to be different and they have a very specific approach. But as the game goes on, you have to make adjustments. I mean, we talk to players all the time about how important in-game adjustments are. So that's when I think that those conversations are happening in the dugout or on the bench or, in the locker room or clubhouse during the game with the coaches, specifically a pitching coach, is he's probably looking at what's happening in the game, talking to the catcher, talking to the pitcher, saying, what do you see? And then they're adjusting in game.
I just have one last question. I guess Blues related. So what do you think Army's going to do? I know there's rumors about, possibly trying to put Krug's name out there. The whole Tarasenko saga thing starting again, maybe not so negatively, but, he had 82 points this year. So maybe see what you can get for him. What do you think Army's going to pull off?
Probably something that none of us see coming because that is the Doug Armstrong way. I always say we're playing checkers, Army's playing chess. It's unbelievable what this guy is able to pull off. I call him the wizard because he's crazy. In the best way. I mean, he just thinks of these deals. And if you were to put it out on paper, you'd say no team would ever agree to that. And Doug Armstrong somehow finds a way for the team to agree to it. So I have no doubt that he's going to pull off something big. But I would be surprised if there wasn't movement on the Vladimir Tarasenko front. I am a little reluctant to do so because, as you mentioned, he's your leading goal scorer, your leading points player on the Blues. But there's very few guys in the NHL that can absolutely take over a game, and Vladimir Tarasenko is one of them. And I know that during the offseason, there were the reports that he wanted out, but he came back. He proved that he was healthy. He had an unbelievable season. And he's been a really good St. Louis Blue. And if Army chooses to move on from Vladdy, if he thinks this is the best thing to do for the team, then an Army we trust. I know that the team will still be in a good position, but it's one of those things where you're like, you might be getting some pieces back, but are you going to be able to replicate that success and, more importantly, that production that you saw with Vladdy? But I think that there's going to be a lot of talk about Vladimir Tarasenko in the coming days.
And I saw Kevin Weeks tweeting about that a little bit ago, that there's a lot of teams that are showing some interest. Obviously, us as, St. Louisans, we want to see Kachuk here. I don't think that's going to happen. A lot of stuff would have to happen, but like you said, Army, he figures these things out. Like we never would have thought O'Reilly would have been on our team.
Yeah, I had one last question as well. Over the course of your career, do you ever feel like you were pigeonholed into covering the women's topics or providing the women's perspective on things? And if so, how did you feel about that?
Oh, all the time. I mean, when Deshaun Watson gets accused of sexual assault and there's 25 lawsuits coming his way, who do they look to talk about it but the female on staff, you know? And I appreciate the opportunity to give not only my perspective, but what I would hope is representative of the way a lot of females think. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. And I don't mind it, because I'm really glad that women are getting a seat at the table. And I would hate for there to be a scenario like the Deshaun Watson situation, and there isn't a woman's voice that's being heard of and asked for their opinion, not only in general, but usually first. And I think that we're seeing women that are being asked about topics like that also, like me, talk about everything else. You know what I mean? But like when there's a situation involved, like when baseball shut down or the NBA shut down because of the Black Lives Matter protests, I want to hear from someone who has a different perspective on that and who can educate me as a white person on that. You know what I mean? Just like I'm sure a lot of men don't think about what it's like to be in a situation where they maybe feel unsafe because they've never felt that before. And so I think the more that I can be given the opportunity, even if it's getting pigeonholed into being the female voice on certain topics, if you can maybe open someone's eyes and their heart to looking at something from a different perspective, I'll take that all day.
Awesome. Well, we certainly appreciate your perspective and your voice, even though we almost literally took it here and kind of like a Little Mermaid scenario here. We almost robbed you completely of your voice.
But you ladies would never be Ursula. You're the best.
But we just want to thank you again for sharing your perspectives and your voice with us tonight. It's not a shtick or exaggeration to say that we've been looking forward to this, that this really is, you know, it may not be hugging your dad, Stanley Cup final, Mount Rushmore moments, but this is definitely a huge moment for us as women who are interested in sports. As St. Louisans, well, I'm a former St. Louisan, for current St. Louisans, and for the Lady Sports Talk Show. Do you want to tell the people one more time all the places where they can find you and hear those perspectives you were just telling us about?
Absolutely. So the show is on 101 ESPN. It's called Carricker and Smallman with myself and Randy Carricker. It's on from 7 to 10 Central Time as the voice starts to go again. And you can listen to us live on your radio in St. Louis, or you can download the 101 ESPN app. You can stream us live from anywhere in the world. And you can always listen to the podcast if you miss any part of the show. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at @MSmallman. And thank you, ladies, for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. I'm the only female at my job. So anytime that I get to come on and talk sports with some amazing, fun, educated ladies, I relish it. So thank you again for having me. And thank you again for being patient. I'm really sorry that I had to adjust the day during the Blues. But as you know, you never know if we don't know if there's going to be a game 6 or a game 7. The schedule is really unsteady during that time. So thank you for being patient with me. And thank you for having me.
Of course, I would definitely say, and I hope I speak for all the ladies, that it was worth the wait for me.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we will work around your schedule anytime.
Oh, well, thank you.
Hopefully join us again. Joe and Michaela, did you have any final shout outs to close us out for the night?
Shout out Michelle Smallman. That's what I gotta say. She's awesome. This was awesome. Yeah, like you said earlier, Andy, maybe not like a Make-A-Wish Foundation type thing, but this was awesome. Like, I don't know. I was telling my husband I was super nervous. He was trying to calm me down for the show. So yeah, thank you for coming onto the show. It was, it was nice, getting to know you more than just, what you hear on the radio and on social media. And, hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Would love to come back. And Joe, you should not be nervous. And I would have never known you were nervous. You're such a pro. You pulled it together. You sounded like an absolute professional. So thank you for the kind words. So I really appreciate it.
Michaela, do you want to take us away?
Yeah, just chiming off of everybody else. Michelle, it's always a pleasure to get to sit and talk to you and just get your insight. You have such a great perspective, not only on St. Louis sports, but just sports in general. So again, just thank you for taking the time to come hang out with us. And to everyone who tuned in, thank you so much. You know that we do this every first Wednesday of the month, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, go ahead and click that bell so you get the notifications. Subscribe so you can see all of our shows, and this will be uploaded immediately to Roku, and you can always listen to us on Hot 365 Radio on their app or on the website if you weren't able to catch it all today. So ladies, it's always a pleasure to sit here and talk to you again. Michelle, thank you so much, and we are going to let you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you for hanging out with us on Ladies Night.
Bye guys, have a good night.
Bye everybody.